Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is your well-rounded math teacher, Mr. Picard. And we're working with 6.3. We're working with polynomials, talking about polynomials, the types of different polynomials and how to add and subtract them, and then also how to multiply them, okay? So we're going to start out with, first of all, degree of a polynomial, and then how to name these polynomials. So let's start out with this, negative 9x plus 1. Now that's x to the first power, so the degree is 1. There are two terms there, so this is two terms. So how you could name this polynomial, a couple of things. If it's a degree 1, it's a linear polynomial. And two terms means it's a binomial. So it's a linear binomial. Binomial just means two. Bi means two terms. Let's go to the next one. There's three terms there. So the number of terms is 3. It has a degree of 2. X squared is the highest power, so its degree is 2. Degree of 2 means it's a quadratic. Let's try that again. And 3 terms means trinomial, so it's a quadratic trinomial. Okay? Negative 7, that's one term. It has, so I'll put one term there. It doesn't have an x at all, so that means it has a degree of 0. So that's a constant. What does a constant mean? Well, there's no variable to plug in there, so it's constantly going to be negative 7. That's what they mean by constant. Sorry, one term is monomial. Okay, here we have 3 terms, so that's going to be a trinomial again. It has a degree of 3, that's the largest power. So a degree of 3 is a cubic. So it's a cubic. Once again, I said trinomial. The last one here, there's 4 terms. And it has a degree of 4. The largest power is 4. That's called a quartic. We don't call it a quartic very often. You could just call it and there's really no name for 4 terms. It's just a 4-term polynomial. If there's 5 terms, it's a 5-term polynomial, so on and so forth. If it was a degree of 5, that's a quintic. We're not going to get too in depth with that. So if you get this far, we're doing good. So give me a cubic polynomial with 4 terms, cubic. So that means it has to have a degree of 3. So I don't know, how about 5x cubed? 4 terms, so I need an x squared, an x, and a constant. So I don't know, minus 2x squared plus 7x and maybe minus 11. So there's 4 terms there. So that's a 4-term polynomial. And it's a cubic because its highest power is 3, or degree of 3. Okay, so adding and subtracting, you guys have kind of done this before. Basically, if it's addition, you don't have to worry about the parentheses. You can just drop parentheses and combine like terms. So like terms have to have the same power. Here we have 2x squared terms, 5x squared and negative 3x squared. Well, 5 minus 3 or plus a negative 3 is 2, so that's 2x squared. Then we got the 4x and the positive, that's a 1x there. So negative 4 and 1 is negative 3, so minus 3x. And finally, 1 and negative 3 are constants. That's going to give me minus 2. Now this one, because there's a negative there, you're subtracting this. There's a couple different ways you can do it. Just run that negative through there. So that would be a negative x squared. So I'm just going to write minus x squared. That negative to the 4 would be a negative 4x. And minus a negative 2 is plus a positive 2. So basically just change the sign out of all of them. And then just start combining the like terms. So 3x squared and negative x squared, that's 2x squared. Negative 2x and negative 4x, that's going to give me negative 6x altogether. And finally, the 3 and the positive 2 is going to give me 5. So that would be my answer there. Here's another negative. Another way to look at it is kind of like this. Just run the negative through it, or you could say that's like a -1 there, and you're distributing that -1 through the quantity. Well, -1 times x is negative x squared. -1 times 2 is negative 2x, and 5 times -1 is negative 5. So basically, you're just running that negative through there. I'll copy down the original here and kind of line them up. Some people like to do that too. You can do whatever you want. But once you run that negative through there, you can drop parentheses. Okay, so negative x, that's negative 1x squared. Negative 1x squared, that's negative 2x squared. Then you have this negative 3x and negative 2x. That's going to give you negative 5x. And the constants, 4 and negative 5, that's going to give me -1. And there we go. This one is addition, so you can just drop parentheses. You really don't have to worry about it. If you want to rewrite it again without the parentheses, some people like to do that. You can. And then just combine like terms. Now, this one's a little different because there isn't another x squared term, so I'm just going to write 3x squared. The next power is degree 1. That's just that negative x, so putting them in order, I'd put a negative x there. There are 2 constants that we're going to add together, the -6 and the +1. That's going to give me -5. So 3x squared minus 1x minus 5. So this would have a degree of 2, so this would be a quadratic trinomial if I asked you to name it, okay? Okay, so now we're getting into some multiplying. When you're multiplying one term, I'm going to multiply 2x by all 3 of these terms. It's just a distributive property. I'm going to multiply, first of all, 2x times 7x squared. 2 times 7 is 14. X times x squared, you add those exponents. That's 1 plus 2 is 3. That'd be x cubed. Then the 2x times the -3x, well, that's going to be, first of all, -6. 2 times -3. And x to the first times x to the first, you add those exponents, that's x squared. Finally, 2x times 5. 2 times 5 is 10. And there's an x there. And that's it. If I asked you to name this, the degree is 3, so this would be a cubic. And there's 3 terms, so it'd be a trinomial. Okay. Let's go to this one over here. Distributing again. -2 times -3 is 6. A to the first, a little 1 there, times a squared. You add those exponents when you're multiplying like bases. A times a squared is a cubed. And then there we go. -2 times -11, that's positive 22. A times a to the first. 1 plus 1 is 2, so that'd be an a squared. And finally, -2a times 20. That's going to be -40. And there's no other a's except the 1, so that's just a to the first. So if I was naming this again, this would be a cubic because my leading degree or power is 3. Cubic trinomial. Okay, let's go down here. Now we're multiplying 3 terms, a trinomial times a binomial. I think you guys are used to the box method, so I'm going to set up the box method to do this, and then we'll kind of go from there. There are 3 terms, an n squared plus 6n minus 2 times n plus the 4 here. So filling in this box, first of all, the n times the n squared, that's going to give me n cubed. And then this n times the 6n is going to give me 6n squared. N times -2 is -2n. Excuse me. And then the 4, multiplying 4 by all three of them. 4 times n squared, first of all, is 4n squared. That would go in that box. Get that written a little bit nicely. There we go. And then 4 times the 6n here is going to give me 6 times 4 is 24, and then n. And then 4 times -2 is -8. So one thing to be aware of here, there's only one n cubed term, so I'm going to put n cubed right there. These two terms are both n squared terms. They're both positive, so 4 plus 6 is 10. So that's 10 n squared. When you combine like terms or add them, you don't increase the exponent. It stays the same. Here's two n terms, 24 and -2. That's going to be plus 22n. And finally, -8. And there we go. You could use distributive property twice. I could multiply all three of these by n, kind of going backwards, and then multiply 4 by all three of those. I'd get all these terms down here and just combine them, kind of get the same thing. So we could do the box method here, but I'm gonna do distributive property twice. I'm gonna multiply 3x first of all by 2x squared, and that's gonna give me 6x to the third. Then I'm going to multiply 3x times -4, and that's going to give me -12x squared. And then 3x times 5 is going to give me plus 15x. And then I'm going to multiply by -1. I'll multiply -1 times 2x squared. Now, you could list them off right here, but I'm going to take that -2x and write it right here, -2x squared, because these two are like terms. They're both x squared terms. So I'm going to combine them eventually. -1 times 4 is going to give me positive 4x. These two terms are like terms. And then finally, I'm going to do -1 times 5, and that's going to give me -5. So rewriting my final answer, this is just distributive property twice. You can use box method. You get the same terms. It would work out the same way. I'm going to have a 6x cubed right there. These two, I got -12 and -2x squared. That's going to give me -14. The x squared stays the same. I'm not multiplying here, so I don't add those exponents. When you add like terms, they stay like terms. So all those are x squared terms. The 15x plus 4x, that's going to give me 19x. And then I got my constant at the end, -5. So here's my answer. And I could name this. My degree is 3, so this is a cubic. And there's 4 terms, and I would just say cubic 4-term polynomial. Okay, you can go ahead and work on the back, and we are done. Have a great day.